Back in my most bratty years, I loved tormenting the boy I grew up with. I'd drop worms down his collar, chase him with my dog, and give him mud pie makeovers. But that boy, Mason, grew up to be taller than me and had a tongue sharp enough to cut me down to size. Until the day he ditched me for an upperclassman, leaving me to wait all night alone by the sea. I put away the fireworks I'd brought for my confession, and decided it was time to find someone new to mess with. Later, he grabbed my sleeve, his eyes red-rimmed as he looked at me. "Why are you ignoring me, Jack?" The beach was freezing, and I had a fever by the time I got back to my dorm. As I was seeing stars, Mason burst through the door. He saw me in bed and let out a visible sigh of relief. "So you were just messing with me?" He scowled. I asked the RA. He said you were in the dorm last night. I vaguely remembered asking an underclassman to cover for me at roll call to hide the fact I'd been out all night. Looks like that backfired. The blanket felt cold and heavy. I struggled to poke my head out and asked him in a muffled voice, "Why didn't you go?" Mason snorted, "Like I'd fall for one of your tricks again." He turned and left as quickly as he'd come. What a shame, I thought. I set off enough fireworks to light up half the ocean, and he missed it all. I slept fitfully until the afternoon, not sure if the fever had broken. A call from Mason jolted me awake. He said my professor noticed I'd skipped class and that I'd fail if I didn't show up. I threw on some clothes, grabbed a textbook, and headed out, still dizzy. On the way, I ran into the underclassman who'd covered for me. He was bursting with excitement, like he'd been part of a top-secret government project. "Jack, did the confession work?" I shook my head. He never showed. He looked disappointed. "Don't tell anyone," I said, patting his shoulder. "I'll buy you dinner sometime." As I walked away, I slapped a sticky note on his back that read 6 feet 0 inches jock, single and ready to mingle, and continued on my way, feigning a somber look. My legs felt like jello as I walked into the academic building and slipped into the classroom through the back door. The lecture was already half over, but the professor wasn't there. Mason was sitting shoulder to shoulder with Alan, the studious class rep, their heads bent together, whispering. Alan spoke, and Mason listened, nodding from time to time. With their 2 movie star faces so close together, it was a beautiful scene. They were equally good-looking, but my eyes were still drawn to Mason. He was still so handsome. As a kid, his cheeks were so soft you could practically squeeze water out of them. Now, his features were sharp and chiseled, with deep-set eyes and a strong nose. If I had to find a flaw, it would be his intense, starry eyes paired with perpetually furrowed brows, which gave him a cold look. I don't know what Alan said, but Mason lowered his head, and his ears slowly started to turn red. I stared, stunned. That was a look Mason had never shown me. Before I could react, 2 girls in the back row let out a series of hushed squeals. Oh my God. I'm watching my ship sail in real time. Mason's barely ever on campus. We have to savor this. The genius prodigy and the hardworking class rep, both handsome and smart. Who could say they're not a perfect match? Look at the sparks when their eyes meet. After a moment's thought, I quietly sat down behind Mason. My first impulse was to poke him in the neck with my pen, hoping to leave a streak across his face when he turned around. But that felt a little lame. Alan patted Mason's shoulder, and only then did Mason turn to look at me. "You're here. Where's the professor?" I asked. "He had an emergency and had to cancel. It's a study hall." It hit me. "You tricked me? You tricked me too, didn't you?" Mason said, unfazed. My lead-filled brain started buzzing. Mason spread his notes out in front of me and casually stuck a pen in my hand. "You've been slacking off since you got to college. Your GPA matters for internships, you know. How are you going to get into the same company as me otherwise? Alan already highlighted all the key points for you. Even an idiot could understand it. Now go on and thank him." Rage surged through me. I shot up from my seat, only to collapse back down, dizzy. Mason finally noticed something was wrong. "What's the matter? Where were you last night?" I asked him. "The lab," he said. "Helping Alan run data?" I pressed. Mason reached to feel my forehead, but I slapped his hand away. Suddenly, Alan, sitting next to him, reached out his own hand. I couldn't dodge in time, and his cool palm rested on my forehead. He doesn't have a fever. Mason's expression relaxed. He thought I was messing with him again. Don't make trouble, he said, turning back around. Getting into AU was your one big achievement. You'd better actually study, or you'll go through 4 years of college and not even graduate. Alan shook his head. You have such a sharp tongue. Mason smiled at him. He's always bullying me. How am I supposed to defend myself if I don't? The sound of the tide faintly crashed in my ears, and a cold wind seemed to blow straight through my bones. Felt like I was back on the beach. The stark, bright fireworks bloomed coldly against the inky blue night sky, searing a painful image onto my retinas before fading into darkness. My youth was quietly dying. I won't bully you anymore. Mason didn't hear me clearly. What? I smacked him on the back of the head, hard enough to make his forehead lurch forward. Hey, why'd you hit him? The girls in the back row stood up. I sniffled, grabbed my textbook, and walked out of the classroom under Mason's stunned and uncertain gaze. My twisted history with Mason goes back more than a decade. He's 6 months younger than me and was my neighbor. The first time his mom brought him over to say hi, I did a running leap and tackled him right onto our living room carpet. I roared, I'm Godzilla, and I eat chubby little kids. He frantically covered his face with his short, pudgy hands, his eyes quickly welling up with tears. His grape-like eyes glistened, soaked in his tears. I'm not chubby. I'm not chubby. His reaction filled me with absolute delight. A wave of pure satisfaction washed over me, and I leaned down and bit his cheek. The teeth marks only lasted a little while. I got grounded for 2 days. My mom said I was a brat and a little shit who was always asking for it, but that I wasn't a bad person. No, I was bad. I genuinely loved seeing Mason cry. To that end, I dropped worms down his collar, chased him with my dog, gave him mud pie makeovers, and cooked him crickets to eat. When Mason first moved in, he didn't have any friends. Even though I bullied him until he was bawling his eyes out, he still followed me around for 2 years, constantly calling me Jack, Jack. I didn't only bully him, though. I'd buy him lollipops, help him hide his wet pants, catch fireflies for him, and get into fights to defend him. Unfortunately, Mason stopped crying so easily after he started elementary school. He was good-looking and smart, and he quickly became the center of attention in our friend group. Back then, everyone thought the cool kids were supposed to be aloof, like those silent types in the mangas, so at a young age, he started putting on a grumpy face, either saying very little or lacing his words with barbs. Pushing his buttons became my new challenge. I loved seeing him lose his composure, his flushed cheeks, his eyes shining like jewels in his anger, and the reflection of myself in them. He would be furious, helpless, but he'd still walk home with me and put breakfast on my desk the next day. It was enough to make me laugh myself to sleep. If it had just been that, maybe our relationship wouldn't have been so special. In our sophomore year of high school, his parents had a nasty divorce. He ran away for 4 days, and I was the one who found him in an abandoned factory. His parents asked him who he wanted to live with. Going with his dad meant moving back to his hometown. Going with his mom meant moving abroad. In the end, he chose me. I knew he just didn't want the memories of his family of 3 to disappear. He hoped that by staying, his parents would one day come back, and they could go back to the way things were. His parents left anyway, leaving him some money. He lived alone in that house. My mom felt sorry for him and had him over for dinner every night, refusing to take a dime for food. He'd tutor me, and if it got too late, he'd stay over and sleep in my room. 2 teenage boys, squeezed into a twin bed, with no room to stretch our arms or legs. He'd stare at the ceiling, his young face filled with confusion. If I had done better, would they not have gotten divorced? I rested my head on his stomach and yawned in response. He was genuinely brilliant. I was the kind of kid who just liked chasing cats and dogs. But he dragged me along with him through top-tier schools my whole life. He dragged me across the finish line into AU, too. The day he got his college entrance exam scores back, he was the top scorer in the city. He called his parents ecstatic, but he didn't look very happy when he hung up. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw him crying with his eyes closed. It's a tear I can't forget to this day. It started from his thick, long eyelashes, pooling in the corner of his eye until it could hold no more, then slid down his flawless cheek and vanished. I stubbornly believed he should cry more, even though he was now taller and broader than me. I'd never seen anyone look so heart-wrenchingly soft as when he cried. So, the next day I dragged him back to his dad's hometown. His dad already had a pregnant woman living there, and his grandparents were terrified he'd ask for tuition money. The whole family was nasty to him. I threw a bag of shit-covered grasshoppers at them and pulled him away as we ran. As screams and curses erupted behind us, we looked at each other and burst out laughing. Does everyone eventually leave? I won't. That night, he secretly kissed me. When his warm breath touched my lips, I was actually already awake, but I didn't dare open my eyes. I believed that our bond was special. We were together through elementary, middle, high school, and even college. No one could ever take our place in each other's hearts. Until Alan appeared by his side. They were intellectual equals with endless things to talk about. They looked good together just standing next to each other. They looked like a painting. The person sitting next to Mason was no longer me. Mason told me not to come to his dorm, but he would go to the library with Alan. Mason got an internship and would bring things back for Alan every time he came back from the company. He was always cold to me but would smile at Alan. I kept suspecting that kiss was just my imagination, but I did consider the possibility that I liked him. So, I planned to use the fireworks to confess and figure out my next move. I guess the childhood friend never stands a chance against the new guy. He didn't need me anymore, and I should probably wake up from this delusion. After leaving the classroom, I went straight to the student health center. I got some meds and 4-drip and caught up on sleep in one of the beds. Mason called me. I rejected it and put my phone on silent. I drifted in and out of a groggy sleep. As the fever reducer kicked in, my body started to sweat, and my clothes became damp and heavy, sticking to my skin. I felt like I was wearing a suit of armor, or maybe like I was submerged in ice water. The cold was bone deep, but I couldn't move. Cold, I shivered. I heard a sigh next to my ear. In a half-dreaming state, it felt like someone unbuttoned my shirt and wiped me down with a warm towel. My limbs slowly began to warm up. The hand tucked my sweaty hair behind my ear, then moved down to my lips. A thumb traced the corner of my mouth, and then a wet, hot kiss landed. My lips were parted. I was pulled in, forced into an entanglement. Annoyed, I tried to open my eyes to see who it was, but my eyelids felt like they were glued shut. Darkness soothed me, my consciousness adrift in a fog. Mason, I shot up. When I opened my eyes, I saw Alan. He was resting his chin on his hand, looking down at his phone. There was no towel or hot water by the bed. I looked down at my shirt. It was buttoned up tight. Was it a hallucination? You really have a fever? Alan asked me. You even mistook me for someone else? I remembered what happened in the classroom. You're asking me that now? I honestly couldn't tell earlier. Alan defended himself. Yeah, right. He reached out to touch my forehead again. I slapped his hand away, so he picked up an elegantly wrapped paper bag and held it in front of me. This is the ginger and pork congee from Spring Garden. Consider it my apology. An apology? I narrowed my eyes suspiciously. I wasn't close with Alan. He spent most of his time with Mason. We were barely acquaintances. There was no need for an apology. Seeing that I wasn't taking it, Alan took the container out of the bag himself. The moment the aroma hit my nose, my mouth started to water. Spring Garden really was the best. Even a simple pork congee looked rich, smooth, and fragrant. I'd had it once by chance and had been thinking about it ever since. I always asked Mason to bring me some when he came back to campus, but he always said he was too busy. Speaking of which, where's Mason? Alan stirred the congee with a spoon, answering calmly. He went back to the office. I guess he thinks work is more important. He really could have checked on you before he left. Huh? Was he trying to? I stared at Alan, and he met my gaze without flinching. Was I overthinking it? I glanced at the congee in his hand. I don't eat ginger.
Alan pauset.
Yes, you do. He was right, I do. But I insisted I don't. Alan didn't argue. He picked up his chopsticks and, head bowed, began meticulously picking out the ginger shreds one by one. Steam wafted onto his face, clinging to his long eyelashes like mist, and beads of sweat formed on the tip of his nose. I took a proper look at him for the first time. He actually had a large frame with broad shoulders and long limbs. As he picked out the ginger, his upper body was stable, and the muscles in his forearms looked well-toned and strong. But his features were delicate, almost feminine, which made everyone mistakenly think he was gentle and harmless. After picking out all the ginger, Alan handed the congee to me. I shook my head. I don't eat scallions either. He went back to picking out the scallions. The congee, now with only minced pork left, was pushed in front of me. Alan was still looking at me with that same good-natured expression. I see. If I hadn't become more sensitive because of the hallucination, I would have been completely oblivious. I thought his target was Mason, but his target was me. He was trying to drive a wedge between us, to poach what was mine. The little snake. A smile touched my lips. I don't eat meat either. Alan put the bowl down and smiled knowingly. With that one smile, his whole demeanor changed. The corners of his already narrow eyes tilted up, and in an instant, he had the seductive face of a fox. He leaned in close, his fingers pressing lightly on my collar, his lips brushing against my ear. You really like to bully people. His warm breath tickled my ear. Mason's not right for you. How about you play with someone new? Goosebumps rose on my back. What do you mean? Alan tempted me step by step. If you get with me, Mason will be filled with regret. Don't you want to see that? I'll admit, for a few seconds I was swayed, but I quickly came to my senses. If I fell for Alan's trick, he'd just play me for a fool. I'd rather see you filled with regret. Alan pushed him away. He let out a low laugh and sat up straight. I pulled the covers over my head. Take it away. I don't eat rice either. After kicking Alan out, I went to the cafeteria for a pork cutlet rice bowl. As soon as I sat down and took out my phone, I saw a message from Mason. Why are you mad? A wave of frustration washed over me. I didn't want to deal with him, so I put my phone face down on the table. It was really all just a bunch of small things, but no matter how small the thorn, if you get pricked enough times, your heart will just give up. The pork cutlet was already cold, the texture waxy and hard to swallow. While I was spacing out, my goofy underclassman, Zach, plopped down across from me with a clatter. Jack, what the hell did you do? He slammed the 6 feet 0 inches jock, single and ready to mingle note down in front of me. Do you know how scared I was just now? Standing in line for food with the entire cafeteria staring and pointing at me? I helped you out, and you pull a prank on me? I was a little surprised. It had been a long time since a prank that childish had worked so well. I was helping you out too, Zach. What if you actually found a girlfriend this way? You think I need help? I get people asking for my number in the gym showers. I deliberately misinterpreted. Oh, so you're looking for a boyfriend? Zach was speechless, his tan cheeks flushing a deep reddish brown with embarrassment. Huh? He was this easy to fluster? Kinda cute. How had I never noticed before? I suddenly remembered how Zach and I met. I was taking the bus downtown to find Mason. As soon as I got on, I saw this big, dark-skinned dummy blocking the way. I say dummy because he was trying to scan a card over and over, 7 times in a row, before realizing it was his cafeteria meal card. He just stood there, red-faced and flustered. I couldn't stand it, so I tapped my card for him. It was only $2. He came over with his phone, insisting on adding me on WhatsApp to pay me back. After we connected, I realized he lived in the same dorm building as me. We got to know each other after that. He's a jock and a little bit of a himbo. Following my principle of it's a crime not to mess with a fool, I'd pulled a few pranks on him, but I'd never paid much attention to his reactions. Thinking about it now, my bratty side was itching to test just how gullible he was. I stared at his feet and deliberately shouted, "Cockroach!" Zach immediately jumped up. What? Where? A cockroach the size of a dog. Zach leaped up and, in 2 steps, was sitting on my lap, his 6-foot-plus frame curled up into a ball in my arms like a roasted cashew. No way, that worked? looking at his terrified little face. A grin spread uncontrollably across mine. Zach was so unlucky. He had become my new target. He described, with words and gestures, how the cockroaches back home traveled in swarms, how fat and strong they were, and how one flew right into his face when he was a little kid. I just stared at his panicked expression. Thrilled. Pranking him was effortless. Super low effort, super high reward. Just putting a fake cockroach on his bed was enough to make him scream. He'd lightly punch my chest. My conscience hurt a little from his punches. I spent a week running circles around Zach before I saw Mason again. After his internship started, he rented a place off campus and only came back to school once every few days. If I didn't actively seek him out, we'd rarely run into each other. Same with texting. He almost never started a conversation. That day he asked, "Why are you mad?" And I didn't reply. The chat stayed dead silent for days. Until last night when he messaged me on WhatsApp, asking if I wanted him to bring me some congee from Spring Garden for breakfast. I replied, "No thanks, I bought some instant oatmeal." He sent back, "I want some too." I don't know if Mason was genuinely interested in instant oatmeal, but that morning he didn't go straight to class. He came to my dorm to find me. He walked in just as I was getting out of the shower. I was wearing a loose, old tank top, rubbing my hair with a towel. The front and back of the tank top were speckled with water droplets, and a large patch on my chest was soaked through. Mason sucked in a breath, quickly grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair, and draped it over my shoulders. I was confused. "What are you doing?" He coughed, his ears turning a suspicious shade of red. "It's cold. Don't catch it. Cold." I was about to say I wasn't cold when my foot slipped on a puddle of water, and I fell backward. "Watch out," Mason yelped. I scrunched up my face, bracing for impact, but the expected sharp pain never came. I opened my eyes and saw Mason's face, inches from mine. He had cushioned my fall, catching the back of my head and my lower back, breaking his own fall with his elbows so he wouldn't land on me. His pain twisted his features for a moment, but he quickly relaxed. He opened his mouth to say, "Do you have any sense of balance? How could you?" He looked up, met my eyes, and the rest of his sentence died in his throat. We were too close, so close our breaths mingled. Ever since we started college, he seemed to have intentionally kept his distance from me. It had been a long time since we'd lain together like this. I could see his thick eyelashes and his amber-colored pupils in the sunlight. His eyes darkened. The cool water was pooling in his palm, but his hand was getting hotter and hotter. I heard his Adam's apple bob, followed by a distinct gulp. His head lowered. My shoulders tensed, but then I saw he was just pushing himself up into a half-kneeling position before reaching out to pull me up. "The floor is cold." It was cold. Annoyingly so. Mason, knowing his way around, opened my closet, took out my hairdryer, and got ready to dry my hair. Without looking at me, he suddenly spoke. "Alan and I are in the same lab group." I was running data that day, not just to hang out with him. I knew this was the explanation he had come up with after racking his brain about why I was angry. He added, "You should look at his notes more. They'll help you. He's a good guy, you shouldn't be prejudiced against him." I snatched the hairdryer from his hand. He instinctively raised it higher out of my reach. "Mason." He coughed awkwardly twice and handed me the dryer. The dryer whirred to life. He couldn't continue either. He saw the 3 cups of oatmeal on my desk and reached for the one in the middle. "Which one is mine?" I stopped him and pushed the cup on the left into his hand. "This is yours." Mason glanced at me. "You didn't put anything in it, did you?" "Nope." Mason took a sip of the oatmeal, his expression strange. I knew what he was worried about. I'd once put chocolate in his seaweed and egg drop soup, but it was Valentine's Day. This time I really hadn't. His cup was just plain oatmeal. "You?" He was about to say something when Zach's loud voice echoed from down the hall. "Jack." Zach ran in, stripped off his shirt right in front of me, revealing a steaming upper body, and plopped down on the chair in front of me. His tanned, muscular torso filled my vision, completely overshadowing Mason next to him. Mason instinctively took a half step forward, blocking my view. His eyes were full of vigilance. "Put your shirt on." Zach wasn't having it. It's wet. He tilted his head to look at me. I just finished practice. Give me a towel. Where's my oatmeal? I grabbed the cleaning rag from my desk and tossed it at him, then handed him the oatmeal I was holding. Zach grinned, wiped the sweat off with his own wet shirt, and opened the lid to chug the oatmeal. Whoa, this is spicy. Why'd you put pepper in it? It's the new viral trend. I don't believe you. Zach snatched the oatmeal I was holding and took half a sip before his face scrunched up like a chrysanthemum. Condensed milk and anchovies? I burst out laughing. Maybe pranks were really that important to me. Here I was, a college student in my 20s, laughing with pure, unadulterated joy over such a childish joke. Watching the friendly interaction between me and Zach, a trace of jealousy that he himself didn't notice appeared on Mason's face. Don't bully him. Give that cup to me. He took it upon himself to grab the oatmeal from Zach's hand. I'll make him a new one. Zach tilted his head back and chugged the rest of the oatmeal. Delicious. Mason's hand froze in mid-air. He finally rubbed his fingers together and lowered his arm. He turned to look at me, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Going to class? You go ahead. Alan is probably waiting for you. Bringing up Alan was my trump card. Mason couldn't argue with that. He nodded and left the dorm. I watched his retreating back and thought, this is for the best. We'd been together for over a decade with no major conflicts, just slowly drifting apart. More important people would enter his life. Whether it was Alan or someone else, it was time for me to step back into my own space. This was the most appropriate way for us to be. My attention shifted to Zach, and I simultaneously began to withdraw from Mason's life. For instance, I'd sit alone in the back of the classroom, eat with Zach in the cafeteria, and play basketball or swim with him during breaks. I stopped texting Mason goodnight. I don't know if Mason noticed, but he started sharing his daily life with me on WhatsApp, mostly just random photos he'd taken. Sometimes it was a cat, sometimes the sky, sometimes his cubicle at work. He'd casually mention that overtime was exhausting. One time, he went to some kind of exhibition and sent me over 20 photos of foreign prank toys, along with a message. Which one do you like? I'll buy it for you. I replied, you already know they're prank toys. What's the point of buying them? He replied, I can pretend to be surprised. I texted back, fine, buy them. He seemed pretty happy about it and picked out a few to send to my dorm. The next day, he saw me using them to scare Zach, and his face instantly turned cold. I didn't mean to provoke him, but his emotions gradually built up and finally exploded when he heard I was planning to change my major. He came to argue with me. You're changing your major as a junior. You're going to study psychology? Have you lost your mind? I shot back with one sentence, you don't know shit. My harsh words left Mason stunned. I had never been so sharp and severe with him. I couldn't control the coldness in my voice. It was like he used to be covered in a beautiful golden lacquer in my eyes. But now that the paint had faded from the sun and rain, I realized he was just clay underneath. He was still trying to persuade me. We can get into the same company after graduation. If the lab project is successful, companies will come to us about commercialization, and I can get you an internal referral. Your starting salary will be high, and you'll move up quickly. I remained unmoved. Eventually, he stopped talking. He asked, even you don't want to, with me? He didn't finish the sentence. I knew what he wanted to say. His parents had left him. He wanted to ask if even I was going to leave him, too. Mason had led me to where I was now. Even this university, this major, Mason had chosen them for me. He was insecure, so he racked his brain to plan a path where I could always walk alongside him. But that wasn't what I wanted. I haven't really thought about what I like all these years. I don't even have any hobbies, so I just followed you. Thinking about it now, it's not that I don't have a hobby. Loving myself counts as a hobby, too. It's just that I'm only realizing this now, which is a bit late. So I'm planning to study psychology, to understand myself and help others. Besides, since we were already going our separate ways, we might as well make a clean break. We'd each see our own mountains and rivers, and walk our own paths. Mason was crestfallen. His last words were, it's hard to find a job with a psychology degree. Then he left my dorm. But in the end, He still had someone find me a complete set of psychology textbooks. They were filled with notes from a top student. I saw Mason again 2 months later at the swimming pool. I had been holed up studying day and night, and Zach, unable to stand it, invited me out for a swim. Who would have thought that Zach, a jock, wore contact lenses? We were messing around, and I kicked him into the pool, and his contact lens slipped. So itchy. Don't rub it with your hands. He didn't listen, rubbing his eye until it was completely red. I was afraid he'd get the lens stuck behind his eyeball, so I quickly pulled him up. Come with me. In a corner, I had him lean against the wall, cupped his face, and helped him get the lens out. He obediently lowered his head, water dripping from his hair onto the back of my hand. At this close distance, I could see his thick eyebrows, separated by the water, and his dark, wet eyes, like a puppy's. His eyelashes didn't move, only trembling slightly in alarm when I took out the lens. Got it out. It hurts. I instinctively puckered my lips and blew on his eye. His neck stiffened, and his hands hovered rigidly by my sides. When I finished and turned around, I saw Mason and Alan standing not far away. 2 people, for eyes, staring intently at me. Mason's face looked like it was frozen, visibly pale. On a date? Alan said, a meaningful smirk on his face. I didn't like his tone, so I went along with it, wrapping an arm around Zach's waist and burying my head in his tan chest. Yeah, you caught us. It was meant as a joke, but no one laughed. Even Zach flinched. He looked down, confused. Huh? We're on a date? I nudged him with my elbow. It's fine. They're both friends of mine. They won't judge us. Zach stammered, wanting to say something, but ultimately kept his mouth shut. Mason asked, as if in a daze, you like him? I nodded. He's cute, obedient, and he lets me bully him. Mason blurted out, but Alan pulled him back. Mason fell silent, looking at me with a sad expression. That little gesture annoyed me. You guys have fun. We're heading back, I said, pulling Zach toward the locker room. As we passed Mason, I heard him say I was here first. Once they were out of sight, I realized Zach and I were holding hands, fingers intertwined. He was gripping my hand so tightly his palm was sweating. I looked at him, then at our hands. What's up? Zach snapped out of it and let go, then pouted. You're the one who wanted to hold hands. It's all rough and calloused. Me holding your hand is any different from holding my own? He huffed and walked off to the showers. During the break between classes the next day, Alan pulled me into an empty stairwell. You succeeded. Mason is completely broken. What? Alan gave me a half smile. Since that was your plan, why didn't you choose me? What plan? I suddenly remembered what Alan had said in the health center. Get with him and make Mason regret everything. This was ridiculous. Why are you so obsessed with me? You don't even seem to like me that much. Alan's expression wavered for a moment. He stared at my lower lip, but his gaze seemed distant. I suddenly realized he was probably looking through me at someone else. You can't be serious. I reached out to push him away. Alan grabbed my wrist and let out a soft laugh. That seductive fox face was back. He lowered his eyes, pressed his thumb against my lower lip, and in a flash, cupped my chin and brought his head down. I was caught off guard, only seeing Alan's face suddenly magnify in front of me. His breath was on my lips. In the nick of time, a large hand shot out between us. Zach had appeared just in time. He pushed Alan away by the mouth, sending him stumbling back against the wall. What are you doing? Alan steadied himself against the wall and sneered. What's it to you? Enraged, Zach lunged forward and grabbed Alan's collar. I stopped him. He's right. It's none of your business. Zach tried to argue, but before he could finish, I slapped Alan hard across the face. The sharp sound echoed in the stairwell, drawing a few gasps. The faces of the 2 girls appeared at the bottom of the stairs, with Mason behind them, looking like they had just come up. Why did you hit him? Seeing Alan's reddened cheek, the girls couldn't hold back. Couldn't blame them. In their eyes, I had slapped Mason first, then Alan. I was a complete villain. Zach defended me. Why can't he? Do you know what he was just trying to do? But I was staring at Mason, a sinking feeling in my gut. Don't say it. Please don't say it. But Mason still walked over quickly, helped Alan up, and said the last thing I wanted to hear. Jack, you've gone too far. Despair washed over me. My feet felt like they were sinking into quicksand, and I suddenly felt a sense of weightlessness. Before they could say anything else, I turned and rushed down the stairs without looking back. Jack, Mason shouted after me. I ignored him, breaking into a run. The wind roared in my ears, stinging my cheeks. The footsteps behind me grew closer, and Mason caught up. He cornered me against a wall, panting, a confused look on his face. I watched the sweat bead on his forehead as his mouth opened and closed. My head was spinning. What's wrong with you? Do you have some kind of misunderstanding about Alan? I cut him off. Who the hell do you think you are? What does my misunderstanding of Alan have to do with you? My words must have been too harsh. Mason looked hurt, his lips trembling slightly. He tried to take my hand, but I shook it off. He straightened up, his expression serious. Treat me however you want, but don't take your anger out on other people. I almost laughed out of pure frustration. I decided to just lay it all out. How do I treat you? We've known each other for over a decade. Mason, how do I treat you? Have I ever hit you? Have I ever done anything truly unforgivable? What kind of person do you think I am? If you really think I'm that stupid and malicious and unreasonable, then why do you keep following me around? Are you a masochist? I rarely spoke to Mason with such severity, and he looked flustered. That's not what I mean. I cut him off again. You just take Alan's side no matter what. Your first reaction is to assume I'm giving him a hard time. Look at how you treat me, the cold shoulder, the insults, the put-downs. And how do you treat him? You praise him, you bring him gifts, you even want me to thank him. No, that's not it, Mason argued. Alan's uncle asked me to bring him those things. My train of thought was broken. I suddenly felt deflated. I hit him because he tried to kiss me. Mason was stunned by this, so shocked he forgot to blink. Mason, for once, couldn't you just choose to be on my side? I buried all my emotions and walked away quickly. Suddenly, things took a dramatic turn. I was called out on the campus forum. Those two girls wrote a 3,000-word post accusing me of campus bullying. In their narrative, I was inherently malicious, leading a gang of cronies and using all sorts of unimaginable methods to torment those around me. The genius prodigy, Mason, was my biggest victim. My terrible attitude towards Mason had spread to others, and even Mason's good friend, Alan, had been assaulted by me. They had personally witnessed me slapping both Mason and Alan. They couldn't tolerate such evil behavior on campus and demanded that the school administration deliver justice and punish a troublemaker like me. I planned to have Alan clean up this mess, but he had disappeared from campus. When I called his phone, his uncle answered, saying he was sick and giving me no opportunity to speak with him. I discovered something terrifying. Alan's uncle was also named Jack. What kind of replacement lover trope was this? Sick. Zach spoke up to defend me, but since he was essentially one of the cronies, he was just swarmed with attacks. My professor called me in immediately to understand the situation. I just vaguely said it was a misunderstanding. What could I say? The dramatic love and hate of a bunch of gay guys? Everywhere I went, people would point and whisper, so I just decided to stay in my dorm and ride it out. Zach joked with me on WhatsApp. Did you ever think you'd become the campus bully? I replied. Did you? He asked earnestly. Is there any way to salvage your reputation? I teased him we could announce we're dating. He started typing, but then nothing for a long time. I went to the bathroom to wash my face. When I came back, there was a long string of messages on my phone. What relationship? Are you serious? Oh, you think announcing a relationship just makes it real? Am I just a tool to clear your name? I'm a 6'2" athlete. I'm very popular, you know? Bro, I'm not gay. What will my friends and teammates think? I have a reputation to maintain. Babe, what time are we making it official? Spinning puppy. GIF. Cute. I wanted to sit on him until he stopped breathing. I picked up my phone, about to text him back, when a new notification popped up from the campus forum. I thought Zach had actually done something, so I quickly clicked on it, only to find that the post was from Mason. He didn't address the drama directly. Instead, he posted a 10,000-word essay, eloquently writing about the little moments between us over the past decade. He wrote about everything from kindergarten to college, saying that his friendships, his family ties, and all his other emotions were invested in me. Perhaps there really is such a thing as imprinting. He was the earliest companion I have in my memory, and I can't accurately express what he means to me, because being close to him feels like my nature. From the first moment we met over a decade ago, my laughter, fear, and tears have all been tied to him. If there had to be one word to explain the relationship between us, that word would be fate. In the end, he said that he had taken his status as my childhood friend for granted, that his behavior had been biased and caused me pain, and that he apologized to me. He said the situation wasn't what everyone thought, and that he would face it with me. My fingers trembled as I held the phone after reading the post. Another message from Zach quickly came through. I don't need to make an announcement anymore, do I? The long post set the forum on fire. People started reading between the lines, analyzing the arrows of affection between all of us. The crowd's imagination was vivid. Hundreds of replies quickly wove countless versions of love triangles and squares. Needless to say, even by the laws of probability, one of those versions had to be close to the truth. Around 4 p.m., someone suddenly posted a video. The poster said, "I don't know if this video is related to this incident, but I happened to film it at the beach a while ago. I think I saw one of their names." I clicked on the video and saw the sky above the sea erupting in a continuous display of fireworks. It was a grand, yet somehow lonely display. The fireworks seared their mark onto the night sky before vanishing. At the most spectacular moment, 2 glittering gold letters exploded into view. MJ. At some point, all the posts disappeared. Someone must have paid to have them deleted. The campus quickly returned to normal. Only one person broke down. Mason. He finally knew what he had missed that night. He left me waiting at the beach. The next morning, as I opened my dorm room door, my foot hit him. He must have come in the middle of the night, not daring to wake me, and had been squatting by my door all night, hugging his knees. Looking closer, his hair was a mess. He looked exhausted. His cheeks were hollowed out, and the dark circles under his eyes nearly reached his neck. When Mason saw me, he staggered to his feet and stood before me, head hung low. I stared back in silence. He asked in a muffled voice, "Are you still willing to hear my explanation?" Noticing the odd tone in his voice, I was surprised and reached up to feel his forehead. Sure enough, it was burning hot. I led Mason into the dorm and got him some fever medicine. This gesture made Mason deeply ashamed. He grabbed my hand, his relatively calm expression completely crumbling. "You waited at the beach all night, didn't you? I'm so sorry. There was a problem with the project that day. I was running data all night and didn't check my phone. I didn't see your message asking me to the beach until the next day. You thought I was lying to you, so you didn't tell me. So that's what happened." A tide of sorrow surged in my chest. I felt like my insides were all twisted into a knot. I pulled my hand away. Mason suddenly wrapped his arms around me, pressing me against the wall and kissing me. The moment our lips touched, I understood. That kiss that night was real. The second kiss in the infirmary was also real. I pushed Mason away. "Alan didn't come until after you left that day, did he? You were the one who wiped me down. You bought the kanji, too." This guy, who put on a show of belittling and distancing himself from me, was actually filled with desire for me. Mason looked even more miserable. "I've actually been in love with you for a long time. Whenever you're in front of me, I can't stop myself from wanting to kiss you. But you're too important to me. I was afraid that if I took that step, we couldn't even be friends anymore. I feel like I'm so twisted. I know the things I said were awful, but when you didn't care, it made me feel special and it made me happy. I tried so hard to act like I didn't care, but in reality, I want to devour you. The moment you look at someone else, I go crazy. I'm sorry. I'm the one who messed everything up." Mason kept rambling on. It seemed he really liked me, but strangely, I had always thought he liked someone else. Was it because neither of us had learned how to love someone properly? I always forced all my emotions onto him, and he would evade, push back, and respond in a distorted way. Is that why we ended up in such a tangled mess? Is this relationship healthy? Would it be better for us to just separate? Seeing that I wasn't responding, Mason asked nervously, "Why aren't you saying anything?" He rarely showed such a vulnerable expression these days. Now, he seemed to have reverted to that helpless state from his childhood. The state of being terrified of losing me. Footsteps approached from a distance and stopped nearby. My gaze went past Mason's shoulder, and he turned to look behind him. He saw Zach. As I started to walk toward him, Mason grabbed my arm. His 5 fingers were clenched so tightly they turned white. He finally shed tears in front of me. "Why are you ignoring me, Jack?" I still love watching him cry. I love his long eyelashes, beaded with dew, and the corners of his eyes, red as a poinciana flower. I love watching those 2 moist, glass-like orbs overflow with tears, washing my reflection into even sharper focus. While Zach and I were having breakfast, Mason sat about 30 feet away. Zach asked me, "Did you 2 make up?" I turned to look at Mason. He had been staring at the back of Zach's head, but as soon as he felt my gaze, he broke into a smile. When he saw my blank expression, his smile melted away. I said in a low voice, "Not yet. He really thinks you and I are dating and is waiting in line for his turn." For some reason, the corner of Zach's mouth twitched up. Then he advised me, "Don't fall for it. He always sides with Alan." I shook my head. Alan is the son of a director at his company. He got close to Alan because he wanted to get me an internal referral. Plus, Alan told him he would help him pursue me, and he believed him. "He told you that?" "He didn't." I looked at his WhatsApp. Zach was stunned. "Then, if you knew all this, what was all that drama about? What was all that drama about?" I once thought I had a personality defect, that I lacked empathy, which was why I was such a brat who had to bully Mason. Because of this, I looked up information everywhere, labeling myself with every psychological term I came across in books like antisocial personality disorder, emotional dysregulation, and so on. After starting college, Mason began to distance himself from me, and I fell into a spiral of self-doubt. I secretly went to see a therapist, who told me there was nothing wrong with me, just that I was a bit obsessive. There was no deep-seated reason why I liked to bully Mason. It was simply because it made me happy. Putting others down is something encoded in the genes of all animals. The process itself has a reward effect that can even surpass self-interest. I met Mason too early in life. My animal instincts took over, and everything I did was really just to get his attention. Simply put, although my methods were wrong, I really did like Mason. However, I bullied him so much as a kid that he had no trust in me. A relationship like that wouldn't last. I needed an opportunity to change the dynamic between us. I wanted him to do more than just rely on me, be used to me, and secretly fantasize about me. I wanted him to trust me, to give me his unconditional love. As for his fear, especially his fear of losing me, I wanted that to stay exactly the same, from now until forever, just as it was when we first met. I also wondered if I was too obsessed with this relationship, if I should just let him go. But the moment I see him cry, all those thoughts disappear. I rested my chin on my hand and said to Zach sincerely, "Mason's tears are my drug." Zach was dumbfounded, looking like his brain was short-circuiting. After a long pause, he lowered his head. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because we're friends," I said. His eyelashes fluttered rapidly. "Aren't you afraid I'll tell Mason?" I pushed my entire breakfast over to Zach as a bribe to keep him quiet. "The reality is we have a mutual crush. We're in love. Doesn't that deserve a happy ending?" Zach didn't say anything. He glanced in Mason's direction. "Well, if you want a happy ending, why are you still giving him the cold shoulder?" I looked over again. This time, Mason wasn't looking at me. He was staring down, stirring a bowl of kanji, tears falling into it one by one. He really is the person most suited to crying in the world. He has the most heart-melting tears in the world. I sighed. Let him cry a little longer. I like to watch. A year later, I successfully transferred to the psychology department and planned to continue my studies in this field. Mason was promoted and made a permanent employee at his company. And we moved in together. Mason cares about his image, so in public, I've toned it down a lot. We look like regular classmates. But behind closed doors, he has nowhere to run. I make him fulfill his promise. Do we really have to do this? What did you promise me? The puppy ears. And the hand, cuffs. I cuff Mason to the headboard, straddle him, and run my hand over his firm, strong abs. His eyelashes tremble, the muscles in his forearms tense up, and his usual cool, self-controlled demeanor is gone. All he can do is pant softly, the corners of his eyes flushed red as he begs me. I lean down and descend upon him. A long while later, can't we rest yet? Jack, I have a meeting tomorrow morning. What did you call me? Jack, big brother. He's about to cry again.